Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated across radio, TV, the live stream network, but still first out of 93 WIBC in Indianapolis. There's a lot going on, and we're not going to waste any time with the niceties. The media that would be the legacy media, the network television side of things, and their stupid, silly shenanigans, they're not having a really good time. And the reason they're not having a really good time is due to their own stupid invention, their own choices. They are, in fact, finding out that when you sow, you do eventually have to reap. And over the last couple of years, they have wasted every single shred of institutional trust over a bunch of scurrilous wordplay and straight up dishonest reporting. And now that the dishonest reporting is carrying the same kind of flagrant nonsense that it has over the last 4 to 8 to 12 years, well, it turns out that people are a lot less ready to just kind of brush things aside as perhaps they might once have been. Case in point number one, at the end of last week, the BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation, CNN, and the Washington Post ran a story that was very quickly debunked, in which they had alleged that 26 Palestinians standing in line near a Gaza aid distribution center were killed because Israeli forces had opened up fire. And this was run immediately. The Palestinian Health Organization, otherwise known as Hamas, released the info, and CNN and BBC did what they do best. They took it as gospel. The Washington Post ran right along behind them, parroting the story. And then the worst thing that could possibly happen for individuals who run with those kind of stories did in fact happen. The camera footage, the security camera footage was released, and no, there was no truth at all to that story. Like all of these stories put out by the Palestinian Health Organization, otherwise known as Hamas. And so CNN deleted some of the statements from their article and just said, this story has been updated. By the way, that's not the journalistic standard for issuing correction. If you say something that is wrong, you allege something happened, and then that thing did not actually happen. It turns out you were wrong, you lied, you have the wrong information out there, you got the wording wrong, you issue a correction. You can put whatever reason that you want in the correction, but you have to issue a correction. A blasé, oh, this has been updated. No, that ain't going to happen. It's why CNN has lost as many defamation lawsuits as it has. The Washington Post, days after the story had been debunked, is just repeating the same story. So much for the Jeff Bezos. We're going to calm things down over there at the Washington Post. And unfortunately, we have to start out with that story because it does funnel into the media's coverage of the horrible terror attack at Boulder, Colorado on Sunday. So at 1:26 p.m. yesterday, Boulder police, of course, were called to the outdoor Pearl Street Mall for a report of an attack on a group of individuals. This group of individuals was a pro-Israel group that was simply organizing walks to basically raise awareness about the hostages that were still being held by Hamas. That's it, walks. Like the run for fun, or the walk for this, the walk to end cancer, the walk to do what, those kind of things. If you want to call that a protest, that is probably the sharpest use of the word protest I've ever heard. Again, just kind of a walking group rally. An individual by the name of Mohammed Sabri Solomon, 45, of El Paso County. He went to Boulder County, dressed up as some kind of a landscaper, and then proceeded to get out 2 homemade firebombs or Molotov cocktails. There were a lot of video that emerged on social media. Of course, we had to be really careful about how we've edited some of these out. He started yelling things like Free Palestine and Death to Zionism and End Zionism, and because it's all about the Zionism from, Mohammed Solomon. But we do have video of him throwing the Molotov cocktails at women and children because, of course. So standers by are running forward with towels with water to beat the flames out. At this time, while the individual has been charged with murder, we don't have any idea on the number of casualties or the total number of victims. We do know that the police department, after they showed up, reported that children were among those who were burned from the Molotov cocktails. So afterward, now in most places in the country, if something like this happened, an individual, a citizen, would rightly pull out their gun and shoot that person dead. Because if someone is committing an act of violence out in the open, they have just forfeited any value that they have to society. And it is within the rights of self-defense for any individual to stop an active violent crime in progress, with all of the measures of safety understood. Like not firing a gun into a crowd, for example. But it's shocking that didn't happen here until you realize that Boulder is one of the most liberal places in Colorado, and they have very strict anti-gun laws because, of course. Wonder what their laws are, concerning Molotov cocktails. By the way, afterward, the people that were kind of surrounding the individual were arguing with him, waiting for the police to arrive. And one guy comes up out of the blue and starts lecturing the people who were at the supporting the Gaza hostages walk, and starts yelling at them for antagonizing. They said, he's like, you antagonized the Molotov thrower, which is bonkers. Check it out.
Just stay away. Just stay away. He's right there. He's throwing Molotov cocktails right there.
There's a cop taking it on the ground.
And you're going to jail, man. I don't give a you don't antagonize
All right, so now you have an old greasy guy coming up and yelling at, again, the victims of the firebombing, saying, you don't antagonize bleep like that. You're going to jail. You know whose fault it is not? The people who showed up to say that they stand in support of those who are still held in captivity by the terror organization Hamas. But this is, in fact, the place that we are now. How the media covered this is insane. But first, we have to get to the police chief, an individual who has only been in office since September of 24. He's quite the character. After kind of giving the vague overview, at the point that the media starts asking him questions, he says that, well, we don't really know if there's any kind of targeted act of terrorism or any kind of, we don't know the motive yet or anything like that. Sure, the guy was shouting, end Zionism and free Palestine at a bunch of people carrying Israeli flags. We don't know what the motive is yet. Man, I wonder. Stupid nonsense from the chief of police here.
FBI is already calling it a targeted terror attack. Mm-hmm. Would you also refer to it as a terror attack?
So I've been in contact with our local FBI multiple times. So we are in contact with them here. We are not calling it a terror attack at this point. Again, it's way too early to speculate motive.
So that's a problem because the FBI had already labeled it an investigation for a targeted act of terror, which, again, the definition of terrorism, as we've gone over before, is an act of violence or intimidation to drive political change. That is exactly what that was. And this is yet another case of the political left in the United States actively using firebombing to try to intimidate or injure. Here we are yet again. And I want to make this clear because you have individuals who have been very, very careful about condemning the making and the use of Molotov cocktails and homemade firebombs over the last couple of months. Where did you think this was going to end up? Where did you you won't tut. Oh, it was just a Tesla dealership. Oh, it was just a Tesla. There was no one inside it. How long did you think it was going to be until people actually started throwing them at human beings? And I do want to make this explicitly clear before we do break to commercial for the radio side of things. Individuals who participate in the firebombing of people or property in this country should be publicly hanged. Not a firing squad, hanged. Not a lethal injection, not life in prison. They don't need a permanent timeout on the taxpayer dime. They should be publicly hanged. Because it should be equal parts pain and humiliation, as well as a permanent reminder to each and every person in this country that if you commit a violent act of terror, you will be hanged. That is the only way this is going to be pushed back against. Permanent timeout threats on your dime so they can sit and read magazines for the rest of their life is not, in fact, anything that could theoretically stop these kind of events. That's exactly how it should be dealt with, nothing less. We'll kick it over to commercial for the radio crew and be back in just a minute. We'll stick around on the live stream side. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. All right, on the live stream side of things, the media coverage of this was abysmal. Of course, Seth Frantzman, who is a brilliant media analyst, he covers, actually, he's the executive director for the Middle East Center for Reporting and Analysis. His coverage of how the legacy media framed this is excellent. And these kind of databases are necessary because the media need to be held accountable in 3, 4, 5 months. When someone is telling you that the media has tried to cover something fairly, you need to be ready with these receipts. So CNN, in their initial coverage of this, said a man reportedly set people on fire in Boulder, Colorado, leaving multiple individuals injured as people gathered for a, and then they put this in quotes, peaceful pro-Israeli demonstration. And as Frantzman later points out, there's no quote. Like, there's no quote of someone related to the situation saying, well, it was peaceful. Why would they be attacked anyway? No, CNN decided to put that in quotes so that individuals might be able to cast suspicion or doubt on the nature of the protest or the walk in favor of those who were held hostage by Hamas. BBC later suggested that the police were examining whether or not the demonstration was targeted, but have yet to confirm a link. What do you mean targeted? He's yelling at the people using terms relative to those at the location. It's not as though he showed up and just started screaming random epithets. They were exceptionally targeted epithets. We have multiple social media videos pointing that out. NBC, the same kind of stuff over to CBS. Attack at Boulder's Pearl Street Mall in Colorado burned several people, police say. Oh, it was just an attack. Oh, just very, very like blasé, kind of soft-handed language. This kind of nonsense is not, in fact, useful in any kind of news coverage whatsoever. People who are looking for information do not need your political framework that you are trying to pass off as nonpartisan when they are simply just trying to get political framework. If you want political bias when it comes to reporting the news, there are entire shows that are very clear with you. Hey, I am this political party. I am of this particular viewpoint. And so the analysis or the commentary that I'm going to pair with the news carries this kind of a political bias. I am one of those. I'm on the right side of the aisle. I've never hidden that. But individuals who claim to be nonpartisan and then put out that filth are responsible for increasing the rhetoric that leads to these kind of attacks. Also, people like Chris Cuomo, who just days before this attack said that, well, you know, illegal immigrant crime, it's really an artificial problem in this country.
Change how I feel about the parties. They are the problem. They are the root of this binary battle to the bottom. The division is almost exclusively manufactured. We are fighting over culture issues and controversies that are completely made up. We divide this country over a single homicide of somebody, and it's absolutely wrong. What happened to Laken Riley is horrible. It's one too many, any way you want to look at it. But it is also an artificial issue.
An artificial issue. Okay, let's have this conversation once and for all. Just lay it right out here. The reason that illegal immigrant crime is not, in fact, an artificial issue is because it is correctly a national security issue. Individuals who are illegal immigrants should not have been here in the first place. If I get a cut at home, because I'm, cutting wrapping paper, that's one thing. But if I am choosing to sit in an alligator pit and then one of the alligators bites me, that is something else entirely. Because doing day-to-day tasks where you're supposed to be, there might be risks, there might be accidents, there might be things that happen. But if you are adding something to a scenario that shouldn't have been there in the first place, if I'm choosing to stroll around the alligator pit, if we're choosing to bring in unvetted individuals into this country from Islamic nations or violent nations, and just, he overstayed his visa, who cares? That is a national security issue. That is a failure. That person should not have been here to begin with. We'll be back in a second. We're going to bring the radio crew over from commercial. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
If I could fall into the sky.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
All right, let's dive into just a little bit of the Pride Month nonsense. After all, it's June 2nd now. I was told this is an incredibly important holiday of the 547 different LGBTQ plus 2IA 8765309 Jenny type of expressions. Very, very important number of holidays. But Pride Month is the holiest of months for those who have, again, made their sexual expression their religion. Although I should say also being black or brown, because I'm still seeing, at least in a post from the Hamilton musical today, the black and the brown stripes are still a part of Pride. Look, I know some people who came out to their parents as gay or as lesbian. I even know an individual who, in fact, has transitioned. But I've never known anyone who's actually come out to their parents as black. I've never seen someone like walk up to them like, "Mom, Dad, I think I'm brown." Nobody does that. That's a wildly weird thing to put in the pride flag. But again, it's just the oppression Olympics over on the left. But it has lost its savor. And we all knew that. We all knew it was coming. I mean, you went from all of this aggressive push towards exposing kids to drag queens because, oh, that's healthy. And who wouldn't want to see a grown man in lingerie? Like all this weird, creepy stuff. And the public just said, no. No thanks. I'll pass. And we really are reaching the end of this era. It could not have come fast enough. Pride parades in recent years have fallen to the wayside. According to the Associated Press, San Francisco Pride, the nonprofit that produces one of the country's largest and best-known LGBTQ plus celebrations, is facing a $200,000 budget gap after corporate donors dropped out. Quoth the Raven, "Ha ha ha, ha ha ha, ha ha." It turns out after you make pride parades, essentially just fetish conventions, it's not really good for business. For some corporations to stamp their rainbow-colored logo over it. And a lot of companies and organizations are ditching the whole Pride Fest altogether. And they should, because there's nothing special about who you choose to go out and sleep with. There's nothing special about glorifying or affirming a clear mental illness. There's nothing special about, again, the black and the brown stripes on the progress flag, just it tickles me. I don't really understand what they were expecting for the long term, but we're even seeing some organizations which were originally considered very far to the left, like Ubisoft. It's a video game company that just a year ago was producing a game about a non-binary black ninja in Japan. Because I know the first thing that you think of is when you think of like a ninja or a samurai is a gay black man. Clearly, that's right up there next to a fat white dude in Japan as a ninja. No, not necessarily a great historical commentary. Well, that company and their kind of subdivision for a popular tactical shooting game called Rainbow Six Siege kicked off June Pride Month by not mentioning Pride Month at all, but instead made a post about celebrating Mental Health Awareness for Men Month. A lot of men struggle with depression, thoughts of suicide, and so they're putting the focus there. A lot of organizations and companies are celebrating a Veterans Month. Linda McMahon, the Secretary of Education, is celebrating Title IX Month. In other words, keeping men and women separate in sports kind of a month. The age of pride nonsense is over, but unfortunately, some of the people who have, again, made this their entire religion are not taking this particularly easy. And look, we're not going to dive too much into the situation of the LGBTQ plus whatever community, but it is really funny to watch them try to articulate how they've been oppressed since Donald Trump has taken office again, and they can't name anything.
Do you feel President Trump is oppressive to the LGBTQ community?
Very much.
How has your life changed since Trump entered the White House?
I haven't quite felt any changes quite myself. I don't know if maybe I may just be blind to it.
Do you feel a child should have to wait till they're 18 to transition, or should they be able to start taking things such as hormone therapy and other procedures once they're in their teenage years?
I think we should allow the children to do what they want to do. I think we should allow children to transition. So I think we allow the medical professions to be the medical professions and stop letting politics dictate as if they went to medical school and know what can and can't happen with a child transitioning.
Okay, thanks, buddy. For those of you who are listening to the show and didn't see that, you're welcome. Take a moment to thank God for a second that you didn't have to see what those of us on the live stream side now need a chemical eye wash station for. Now, there were a few pride events, it's not completely gone yet. What New Jersey decided to do today, or at least some lesbian police officers from New Jersey just went out into the street and started chanting lesbian over and over. I'm not kidding.
Let's go, lesbians, let's go!
I mean, all right. Why does no one take us seriously? And there's one guy who's like, I like women. I like women. That's way to go. That's great. And, also maybe raising a little bit of awareness that lesbian couples do in fact have the highest rate of domestic violence of any demographic or any couple, period. So if you're out there and about and you're engaged in lesbian activism, keep an eye out for the signs. Could save a life. Then, of course, we got to get the friendly kind of pseudo-Islamic crowd involved, because, again, this all comes down to this weird alliance between the LGBTQ fascisty folks on the brown side, brown being the traditional color given for fascists, the communist Marxists, again, who are usually busy committing their own brand of terror attacks, and then the green, radical fundamentalist Islamic groups. When those groups do merge, it gets really, really weird and really, really funny. Like individuals who are on the LGBTQ plus whatever, who also suggest, like if there's a dude who's like, yeah, I'm actually not a man, I'm a Muslim woman, the results are curious.
I'm looking for a man who's at least 6'1", brown eyes, big nose, thick curly hair, hairy, just like furry, just like a carpet on his chest. Not a Zionist, from a Baba culture, Muslim or open to converting.
I don't know. Should I tell him or should you tell him that the individuals that he is describing, like is Islamic man from a country of the certain cultures that he is glorifying, would probably have him on the end of a crane by the afternoon? Again, the mental illness that was celebrated for such a long time, the disconnect from reality, and that is at the bottom of the barrel. That is, in fact, what this is. It's a series of mental illnesses, a self-hedonistic worship, the idea that the affirmation of something makes it a good thing. Doesn't matter what it is, as long as someone affirms you, gives you a warm hug and tells you that you're perfect and just follow your heart and you're watching the Disney Channel, then suddenly I guess that's totally fine. No, that's not in fact true. Sesame Street, with their new Netflix partnership, posted a bunch of pictures of Muppets holding. I want to make sure I get this. I want to make sure I get this right. This is in fact an accusation to make here. I want to make sure. Okay, yes. So Sesame Street posted a picture of the different Muppets holding each other's hands. Just said, well, on our street, everyone is welcome. I do think this is funny. They don't have Bert and Ernie holding hands. Like they hey, Bert is holding Zoe's hand, and then Ernie's holding Zoe's hand, and Bert appears to be holding Big Bird's hand. Which again, the whole pride thing, you'd figured. Anyway, we'll let the radio crew head over to commercial. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. I did have something that I wanted to mention to you guys just very briefly over on the Colorado situation that we didn't get to, but I'm going to tackle now because by the time we get into the next section on deportations, we're not going to have time to back up for this one. So, of course, as soon as this horrible terror event in Colorado took place, people started looking in the same way that the DC terror event by the Marxist the other day for the statements from individuals like Representative Ilhan Omar. Because as you may remember, in 2018, Representative Ilhan Omar said, well, it's not like, radical Islamists or Marxists that we need to worry about. What we really should be worrying about is the white man.
I would say our country should be more fearful of white men across our country, because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country.
Okay. By the way, yesterday she posted. No. Excuse me. She didn't post until today. Again, just like the last time that there was an attack, had to just say, well, I'm not giving any comments at the moment. She said, I'm holding the victims and families of Boulder, Colorado in my heart. Violence against anyone is never acceptable. We must reject hatred and harm in all its forms. Same with Representative Rashida Tlaib. The violent attack in Boulder is horrific. My heart goes out to the victims and their families. Violence has no place in our communities. Do you notice what they didn't seem to mention? Oh, yes, it was the nature of the attacker. Screaming, again, wildly anti-Semitic nonsense. They wouldn't mention that. Oh, no. Because, again, they believe in the causes of the individual throwing the firebombs. They've been very clear about this consistently. AOC, who's running for president, she, of course, tries to temper this down so she can, again, avoid some of the blame. She says, I'm horrified by last night's horrific attack in Boulder. My heart is with the victims and our Jewish communities across the country. Anti-Semitism is on the rise here at home, and we have a moral responsibility to confront and stop it everywhere it exists. Anti-Semitism is on the rise? You mean from an individual an illegal immigrant who overstayed his visa from Egypt by the name of Mahmoud? I for one, am shocked. You mean the people that around the world have been chanting death to the Jews may also want the same thing here? We better find out which congressmen and congresswomen are supporting those individuals staying here. I do also want to point out that not too long ago, I did a small interview with an individual who was doing kind of a small debate over illegal immigration with an individual who made the claim that because the majority of people in this country who are here illegally, their visas expired, means that that means they're all somehow wonderful, good people. No. This is not an individual who just crossed the border illegally in the South. People who are in this country violating the law to get here or to stay here should not be here. It's not a difficult concept. You don't have to do advanced calculus to come to that conclusion. I don't have to jump through hula hoops in order to reach these conclusions. They were common sense conclusions for the vast majority of human history. We'll be back in just a second to talk about deportations and, that same thing that the crew is currently terrified of. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast here over on the Daily Signal.
The Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
There was a major ICE kind of targeted action, a major operation which took place this afternoon, at least was kind of the final information. This operation was taking place yesterday into this morning. Nearly 1,500 illegal aliens, including foreign fugitives, murderers, child predators, were arrested in Massachusetts during what they called Operation Patriot, a month-long immigration enforcement action by ICE, by FBI Boston, the ATF in Boston. So congratulations to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms for finally being useful. This is a banner day. The Drug Enforcement Agency of New England and the State Department. Here is Todd Lyons, the acting ICE director, giving some of the details earlier this afternoon.
In the meantime, in Massachusetts, you had, I think, the largest ever raid, or at least netting of arrests of 1,461 people. That's the largest so far. And those that were arrested, 790 of them had criminal convictions, and 277 had what we were just talking about, final orders of removal or deportation. Tell us more.
No, and Dana, it was a great operation, and the fact that it was over the course of a month really shows the commitment of the men and women of ICE here in Massachusetts and all over New England. And we took a whole of government approach. We used all of our partners to include diplomatic security, the U.S. Marshal Service, ATF, FBI, DEA, to really locate and arrest these criminal aliens.
This is, in fact, a very good thing. And the reason I say that it is a good thing is because if you are going to do a thing, if you're going to take on a task, a sizable task, one that carries a lot of risk, putting all of your resources in and getting it done correctly is a very, very, very good thing. So, of course, to make matters worse for themselves, because again, the immigration policy of the Trump administration is by far his most popular agenda, period. It is right up there with Trump's view on American military strength in almost every poll. In fact, I checked the Real Clear polling averages on issue-specific things for the Trump administration right before the show. Without a doubt, all but 2 of the 20 polls that I checked, the 20 top polls that were listed for the most recent, Donald Trump's immigration policies and how it is carried out by Tom Homan, by Kristi Noem, by Marco Rubio, is the most popular thing his administration is doing with the majority of Americans, especially with independents. And so one would think that the media would at least try to slow walk their criticism of this. That they would just try to say, well, actually, maybe what Trump is doing is good. And very, very occasionally, something like that will slip through. John Fetterman of Pennsylvania is showing that over on the Democrat congressionals, who we'll get to in a second. But outlets like The Hill are losing it because some of these deportation cases involve mothers who are here illegally in the United States and children who are American citizens. And the media is throwing an absolutely caterwauling fit, a Category 5 hurricane of tears. Why? Because they're saying, oh, how could Trump be deporting these little U.S. citizens? Hold on a second. I thought the family separation was a bad thing. If the mom who immigrated here illegally, like one did from Honduras, wants to take her 4-year-old daughter home with her, rational thing that one could conclude, then who are we to say, no, she has to stay here? Again, this is the issue with the birthright citizenship problem. It encourages family separation because birthright citizenship, in its current interpretation, naturally assumes, naturally conveys, naturally argues, insists, might be the best word here, that those with the children are anchored. And in fact, there you go, anchor babies. Again, we see targeted reports of this right now with the People's Republic of China. So, that aside, let's talk a little bit about some of the outrage, some of it coming from Representative Stephen Lynch, Democrat from Massachusetts 8th. He's just decided that this is the end of the world. Oh my God, how could someone arrest rapists and murderers? The horror. That's not what Boston's supposed to be about.
I just stand in opposition to all that crap. I got to tell you, it's just, this president and this administration is dragging this country down every single day in the eyes of the world, in the eyes of its own citizens. In
the eyes of its own citizens. Hey, wait a minute. Why not in the eyes of its illegal immigrants as well? Oh, that's right. Because a lot of them aren't here now.
People he has assembled in his administration are a goddamn disgrace.
He used a bad word. Oh, he's such a big, strong man.
Disgrace. It will take years, maybe decades, to repair the damage that Donald Trump and that group of morons and buffoons is doing to this country each and every day.
Oh, man. I don't know. I know that just won't be the same kind of place if, you don't get outside and shivved on your local college campus, or, fentanyl is not flowing into your local community, or gang violence. I mean, look, if you don't have an MS-13 knuckle-tattooed guy picking up his kids from daycare before he goes home and beats his wife, what's the point? What's the point? I mean, come on. I mean, it's not like there are any illegal immigrants who are, throwing firebombs at people. Oh, I'm surprised at this point, by the way, that Democrat Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland isn't standing outside the Boulder, Colorado terrorist cell with a margarita and demanding he be released. That brings us over to, one last thing. This down from Texas. I do love some of the way the media is covering this. Now they're shifting over to kind of a classic trope that's just crying. So again, the story is not that, what the individuals did they violate the law? It's that, there were tears. Oh no, the tears.
We captured the moment two men went from migrants to detainees. It happened last week at Dallas Immigration Court when nearly a dozen people showed up to have their asylum cases heard. Their cases were dismissed by the judge, and when they walked out of the courtroom, plainclothes federal agents were waiting to take them into custody. Immigration attorney Belinda Arroyo says targeting migrants at the courthouse used to be a rare event.
What does it do when an ICE agent is in the court and they're not dealing with somebody who's currently in ICE custody?
Well, I think it makes everybody be on edge.
It's not just happening in Dallas. Asylum seekers in San Antonio were seen crying and begging for help as they were led away in handcuffs. Two Department of Homeland Security officials tell CBS News ICE is asking immigration judges across the country to dismiss the court cases of certain migrants so the agency can arrest them once their hearings end and place them in a fast-track deportation process known as expedited removal. Outside a Miami courthouse, this migrant in cuffs says in Spanish, "It's a trap." The Department of Homeland Security released this statement to CBS News, saying Secretary Noem is reversing Biden's catch-and-release policy that allowed millions of unvetted illegal...
I do love the little CNN bit there. Oh, man. Decisions made. By the way, if you want to show up to the United States and gain entry, we have these really cool things. They're called ports of entry. Really neat. You can show up and say, "Hi, I would like to enter the United States." And then there's like a process that you can go through. I know, crazy. But just kind of showing up and going, "I belong here now." Well, it turns out that that's not technically legal. In fact, crossing the border and just kind of hiding out in the country is illegal. You don't have a right to be here in the United States. And if we're onboarding new people, I'd rather have those that showed up the legal way. Cutting people in line is not exactly an American virtue. No, do things the right way. And also, the crimes that the federal agents are showing up to grab people from are those who, again, have warrants out for their arrest for things like sexual violence, for battery, for assault, for murder, attempted murder. Amazing. Those who the left is throwing their stake behind on this 80-20 issue, which is very quickly becoming an 85-15 issue, soon to be a 90-10 issue, is incredible. Radio crew will catch you in a second. We're going to send you off to the wild lands of the commercial. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. There was one other dispute that occurred. The Department of Homeland Security received evidence that Representative Jerry Nadler from New York's 12th District was aiding in the harboring of rioters within his Manhattan office. And then when the Department of Homeland Security officers attempted entry just to say, "Hey, are you harboring any protesters or rioters here?" Then the Jerry Nadler staffers blocked the entry. And then one of his aides shoved a federal agent, which you are not allowed to do. And so a detainment took place. Again, because if you shove an officer, what follows is you're put in handcuffs. That is the standard procedure. And it's just quite the scene. So over on the live stream crew, because I think this is one that's a little bit better for watching than just listening, check out how this particular detainment goes. And of course, the ladies in the background who are, again, just losing it, they were the ones who blockaded the door, like the Bastille, and then shoved the officer. But, hey, I mean, it's they're the victims.
No, she did not. That is not what happened.
That is not what happened. Okay?
What?
Hold on a second.
Give me your contact information right
No,
now.
I'm going to give you time to speak to you.
Hey.
Again, I love I need your contact information. How dare you come in here? What? I mean, you're acting a little weird. This is federal property. This is congressional property. Like the Department of Homeland Security has jurisdiction there. They're allowed to. If it's assumed that there's good evidence you might be violating federal law, they can come right in.
I'll speak to you. We got you. We got you. You're okay.
I don't have to.
You're okay.
She asks, while Mopey's over there going, it's like, I assaulted a federal officer. Incredible. The other one asks, well, do you have a warrant? If it is a private residence or business, you can ask for a warrant. If it is a federal office, there is no warrant required.
You're okay. You're going to be okay.
I'm a federal officer. We're here checking on something. We have the right to check. I'm giving you a warrant. I'm not resisting. Stop resisting. You harboring rioters in the office. So there's not a problem. Let's walk inside. Let's walk through.
For what?
Let me see what's in here. Let's go. Come on.
Can you stay?
Hold it there.
And by the way, they didn't even end up arresting the girl. They afterwards that they left, and Nadler was just mad. He issued a statement. President Trump and the DHS are sowing chaos in our communities using intimidation tactics against both citizens and non-citizens in a reckless and dangerous manner. Oh, the anger, the scourge, the madness, oh, the humanity.
Congressman, you have a situation you're also dealing with that I wanted to ask you about, of course. I'm going to play the video that we have obtained for our viewers while I describe the situation. This happened last week.
To speak out after the DHS released their misleading and frankly lying story about what happened. DHS was upset that some of my staff members were watching them grab immigrants emerging from an immigration court in the same building a floor below.
Incredible. Oh, no, they were just, were they acting suspiciously, doing something weird? Again, I don't think that we've seen the end of this one. The length of time it took for Nadler to actually get out what he was trying to say, it is something that does, in fact, tickle my very soul. Well, it is unfortunately time to dig into 2026. I hate it, you hate it, but we've got something useful, somebody competent to talk to about it. He's over on the line. We're going to head over and pick him up before I miss the timing in the clock window. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
Good evening, everybody.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
All right, fine. I'll admit it. It's time to talk 2026. Not because I want to, but because we need to. If we're actually going to get a 60-vote majority in the Senate, if we're actually going to have Mike Johnson walking something other than a tightrope, then you got to win some elections. And it's one thing to have a big, massive, hit you over the head kind of pack that walks in and says, hi, I'm from the coast, and if there's one thing I know you in southern rural area likes, it's big people from the coast. Not always going to draw a lot of voters. You need a good grassroots organization who has experience in getting great campaigns based out of localities to drive really good elections, the kind that don't make, awful mistakes. So we brought on literally the president of Patriots Grassroots to talk about it, Elijah Day. Elijah, thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Tony. Happy to be here.
So right off the top of the bat, it's 2026 season. It's here. It's a shame, but we got to get moving because there's work to be done. Give me your kind of lay of the land, your feel on it, right? I mean, you've got your finger on a lot of pulses at the moment. Give us a kind of a 30,000-foot overview.
Yeah, definitely. 2026 is amazing. We're gearing up for it. We're already starting work. The preparation is happening right now. In fact, we've got a couple things that I think are going to be maybe helpful going into the 2026 season, a couple elections. So we've got some races in New Jersey and Virginia that are happening this year that we should be paying attention to. And we're going to be able to practice some messaging and some strategic tactics this year that might be helpful to us going into 2026. As far as how I'm feeling, I mean, our company, what we do is we knock on doors and we talk to people, and we do that all over the country. And so we're able to get a good pulse on how people feel. And I actually feel very good about 2026 and going into 2026.
What a concept to actually do not just the door knocking, whereas, hi, I'm here for candidate Z, vote for us, thank you, and like kind of like walk off into the distance, but to actually ask people some questions, get a feel for how things go. The reason that's valuable, and the reason I have such an ire towards the opposite idea, how do I say this without really aggravating some of the people I know who are listening? There are a couple of strategy firms who are from, let us just say, large metropolitan areas. And they do a lot of algorithmic calculus to say, well, we think that in this region of the country, one should focus on these topics. And you see conservatives, Republicans, independents, populists in that area going, that's not what we're interested in. That's not what I want out of my candidate. I want them to focus on the issues that are relevant to my community that I want represented in DC. And from what I've seen so far of Patriots Grassroots, which isn't zero, I do a little of my research here, you guys actually ask the questions and provide real on-the-ground data, which sounds like a no-brainer. You tell the people about it. It's shockingly rare in today's day and age.
Yeah, look, everything in politics starts with the grassroots. And that's just the reality. So you can do as much data and metrics and everything as you want on things, and there is use for that, and it is useful in the way that like you can find targeted messaging. But at the end of the day,
you can draw averages and stuff. Of course,
it's great. Yeah. It's a great tool, but at the end of the day, you need grassroots doing grassroots things. Like that's really what it's about. And for us, that means having real individuals, real conservative individuals that are great. They know their people, they know their communities, and they're going out and having those conversations. It's not just, that guy in an office in DC or that guy in an office out in California, New York, or Texas is saying like, this is what we should do. It's Joe Schmo that's a retired teacher that is, wants to get politically active and wants to go out, walk in their neighborhood, and they want to talk to their neighbors, and they want to really get down to what the root of the issue is. And that's what we're about. Like, that's what we're able to do with Patriot Grassroots.
And you might say, hey, look, doesn't everyone already know what they believe? Doesn't everybody already know what party they're in? What does it matter? Why are we still doing the door knocking? This ain't church visitation. What's going on? I would pose that right now you have more people who are politically homeless than have been in a very long time in this country. Specifically, I talk about on the show a lot, the 90s labor Democrats who may have been, UAW members for a very long time. They voted Democrat a big portion of their life. All of a sudden, in the last decade, they were told they're stinky white men who are the problem of this entire country. Nobody wants anything to do with them. And they've even seen some of their economic policies, maybe that they had supported, also be thrown to the wayside in favor of things like reparations and other kinds of nonsense. If there are a large group of politically homeless, then it is, in fact, a responsibility of individuals who care about getting the right kind of people elected to get out there and offer a home to the politically homeless. And you can't do that from a corporate level. You have to do that at the grassroots level. Otherwise, it's not authentic and it doesn't work.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's obviously true that there's politically homeless people. How did we go from the vote share we had in 2016 to the vote share we had in 2020 to the massively different vote share that we had in 2024? And that's because there are a lot of people that are changing their minds. There are a lot of people that need to have these conversations. I mean, you can look at two very distinct groups of people, and maybe there's some, and that's Maha. You have the Maha movement. You have all these people that are very cognizant of what is coming into their body, and they've realized that they've been being lied to for so long.
Just a second. Can I point out how crazy it is that the Subaru driving crunchy, almost hippie moms who used to be so far onto the left, they were pandered to by PBS kids in the early aughts, are now almost a stalwart group over on the right that are, again, protesting against food dyes and other preservatives and things that might be carcinogenic in foods. The craziness of the modern political coalitions it's bewildering to me. I mean, come on, doesn't it hit you a little bit over the head? Wow.
That's what happens when you get lied to constantly over and over and over again, and then you realize you're being lied to. And so at that point, you have to question everything. It's now I have to take it back. Am I just questioning my health, or do I now need to question this issue, life? Do I need to question LGBTQ issues? Do I need to question, like, you have to start questioning everything because you're realizing this one issue that was important to you, you've been being lied to for so long. And another group that I'd point out is minorities, specifically the Latino community, but even the African American community. We're seeing it across the board. These people that are realizing, once again, I've been lied to. I'm not being taken care of. The Democratic Party is incompetent. Even the Democratic Party right now, I think, is admitting that they are having problems with competence. And so now you're having these people that are having to confront that and say, okay, well, who is going to take care of me? Who has been telling me the truth on some of these issues? And when you have somebody showing up to your door and having those conversations with you in person, it truly, truly is. It's a game-changing moment. And just as a side note, because we do work with Heritage Action and Kevin Roberts, obviously great, Ryan Walker, the team there, and they had us do some minority outreach stuff in a few different places, and we partnered on it, and we learned some amazing things, and we saw movement to the right that was very, it just was indicative of what ultimately happened in 2024 election cycle and what I think we're going to continue to see.
So obviously you don't have to tell the Daily Signal guy about, Dr. Kevin Roberts and also the Heritage Action crew. But at least as far as the motivation towards cultivating kind of cultural common points that used to be such a staple in a lot of America's African-American Black communities in different cities and locales of the United States. We just talked with Bob Woodson about this on Saturday. I think that the opportunity to cultivate a cultural common core, especially with many members of the Hispanic community who often are very conservative, are often kind of a stricter Protestant or Catholic, who do hold a lot of kind of common American values that, again, are in reach because the sharp contrast, and I say in reach, I mean in reach to be part of this new Big Tent coalition, because of the commonalities among ourselves, of course, but also the sharp contrast against the side that is claiming theism of any kind is bad and traditional thought is terrible and cultural pride in things like traditional values and a focus on the family is evil and wrong. It's amazing to watch the left fumble. And while they admit there might be incompetence, they have no idea the root of the incompetence.
They don't get it. Nope.
They're going,
100%.
wow, this yard's got a lot of weeds in it. And then they're like, well, I sure wish I knew what was causing these weeds. Like, you think we should mow the yard? No, I'm just, look at all these weeds. And then they walk off. It's insane.
At the end of the day, it comes down to pride. I mean, they've made these to backtrack on them would be very difficult. And you see some people trying to do it. You see Gavin Newsom trying to do some of these things, and a few other people on the right the left, as they're trying to gear for a presidential run. They're trying to backtrack on some of these issues that they've put a flag in the ground on. But no, I mean, we as long as here's the thing, and this is something that I know Susie Wiles with the Trump team and our current chief of staff at the White House says a lot. You have to stay on offense, and that's what we need to do right now. We need to stay on offense. We need to dig the heel in. We cannot let up. We have to start fighting right now. Like I said, we got Virginia and New Jersey, so let's make a statement. Like, let's push to win this governor's race in both of these states and shock some people, and then let's go in heavy in 2026 and ready to roll there too. We're making big plans. Let's reach the minority community. Let's get other Latinos who speak Spanish, who maybe are first generation Americans or immigrants. We have someone on our team. He just became a naturalized citizen this last week. Mm-hmm. And he did work when we worked with Heritage Action. And he's very conservative. He immigrated from Honduras. He came to this country legally, worked hard, and he helped us lead minority outreach teams, Spanish-speaking minority outreach teams, and the impact he was able to make was huge. And like I said, he just got his citizenship this last weekend, and we just need to keep that kind of stuff up. We have to, these coalition groups, we need to keep outreach. maybe we got their vote this time, but we need to make them full-time members of what we're doing and the vision that we have.
I won't get too into the weeds with this, but a lot of the listeners know that when I was in college, I spent a lot of time in and out of a particular Hispanic family's household whose family immigrated from Honduras. And I not only did that cement my Spanish-speaking abilities to, I without any doubt, fluent, but it gave me a passion for the Midwestern Hispanic communities who, for example, in Delavan, Wisconsin, the southern part of the state, massive Hispanic community, very, very, very conservative. And when I worked in Governor Walker's office, I had this really cool opportunity to speak with Hispanic communities around the state that at the time were very against Governor Walker because of the traditionally blue focus of Hispanic communities. Many of those have now flipped aggressively. We're talking like zeal of the convert flipped to supporting Republican, I don't want to say Republican principles, but really conservatism, classic Americana principles in the state. I've seen that in Indianapolis. I've seen that in Indiana broadly, Southern Illinois for sure, Bloomington Normal especially. I think there's a great opportunity for what you've called this. We're hearing all the times about the deportations of illegal immigrants when there are so many people from Hispanic communities, Central and South American communities, aggressively proud of their coming in the legal way, getting their legal citizenship. And by God, if we're not celebrating those, we are fools.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, that's the other thing that is also really important is when people do it the legal way, we as a party, as a group of conservatives, we should be meeting them with open arms.
That like builds on and encourages assimilation and like cultural adhesion. I mean, again, the benefits are endless.
Endless. There's so many things that we can do and are doing, but I think we should. The reason why I have so much confidence is because the people that we currently have in the White House that are running the party, that are at Heritage and Heritage Action and all these sister organizations, I feel confident because these people are doing amazing things. These leaders, they really have a vision. They're thinking long-term instead of very short-term. They're having the conversations that need to happen. And they're thinking outside the box. It's not the same old cookie cutter campaigns that are happening anymore. We're doing new things. We're speaking to the people. We're getting out there. We're having conversations. For years, all anyone would ask us to do was knock 50,000 doors over and over and over again in the most urban, dense area of a city. Now we're going out to the rural areas. We're talking to people that don't normally get talked to, that don't normally have their doors knocked. And these things are making a difference. And we have great leadership right now. Like I said earlier, let's put the pedal to the metal. Let's keep this going. Let's keep fighting because we can continue these wins, and we need to continue these wins in order to cement the policies and the agenda that our president has put forward.
You know what fuels momentum? More momentum.
100%.
That's just physics, baby.
Yes.
Elijah Day over from Patriots Grassroots. Of course, patriotgrassroots.com. We'll, of course, have that here on the Chiron and in the description below. Elijah, thanks so much again for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. And please go to the website. We are always bringing on good conservatives who want to go help us on our mission. So sign up, and we're happy to have you. And thank you, Tony, for having me on.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
All right, very briefly, and I do mean very briefly, just a quick moment here of extra bonus squared, Tonus. If you really would like to help out the show, head over to Apple Podcasts and throw a subscribe our way. You click follow or whatever it is that you click over on Apple Podcasts for the Tony Kinnett Cast. It helps us out tremendously. In the description below is where you find that. We've got a couple of really cool things that are heading down the pike, especially at the end of this month. But for all of those over on the live stream, those that are, of course, tuning in via the radio and the TV network side of things, we really do appreciate you over from the Tony Kinnett Cast crew. We do have a little bit more on some new CNN polls, some variants and stuff that I would love to dig into tonight, but there is just no way that I'm going to be able to dive in at this time. Also, new interviews and guests for the show are being booked so quickly. We're probably going to have to figure out something else to do with all of this extra content. So again, head over to Apple Podcasts. Make sure you're subscribed to the Tony Kinnett Cast, and that way we can get you all of that stuff as soon as it's out, because the quality of content we try to keep top notch. Anything else, we'll just blame producer Nick for. So that's the plan. Everybody, all right, break. Have a great evening. We'll be back tomorrow morning for the top news in 10, and then Tony Kinnett Cast tomorrow. Have a great evening, and of course, as always, take care.